Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Clone Zone. We're on time. We made it. 5 o'clock, not 5:01 or 5:02. We actually did it. Today on the Clone Zone, we are joined by Brandon from Talking Bay 64, great Star Wars podcast. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Great to be here. Really excited.
We are going to talk about episode 8 today, Reunion, obviously the one that came out. I think people are familiar with how we do the show by now, but we're going to talk amongst ourselves about the episode because it was crazy. We'll do that for 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll start taking questions from chat. If you have any you want to get in the queue, you can do that through Super Chat. But let's just dive in. Brandon, I want to ask first, just how are you enjoying the series as a whole before we really dive into Reunion?
Yeah, I am surprised of how much I've enjoyed it over the past few episodes. I mean, even when the season 7 came out and we met the Bad Batch and everything like that, and then they announced the spinoff, I was not hesitant, but I was not like, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. And it really just has immediately won me over. And I'm just every week, I made a note, like, for some reason, like, is like Wrecker my favorite Star Wars character ever? You know, like, it's really kind of come to life for me. And I've really been enjoying it so far.
I feel like everyone has had that experience, us included. We were like, really? Them? And immediately it's great. But I'll do it every week. I'll brag that I loved Wrecker from the Bad Batch arc in the Clone Wars, and now everyone's coming on board, and I'm like, I was there first, but I love me a himbo.
Your record collection is growing back there.
Yeah,
Although
I've got a Funko Pop.
I bought the Funko Pop.
Okay, well, yeah, but I took it. I got the mug, and I'm getting the Black Series figure whenever that comes out. Mm-hmm. I'm ready. He's one of those characters I'm going to collect his stuff. What did you think of today's episode, Brandon?
I thought it was slow, boring. Not a lot happened. Nothing really to progress the story. No,
I'm sorry you got stuck with this one.
Yeah, tough one to talk about. I mean, waking up early and watching this every week. This week was just like I didn't need any coffee. I was just ready to go right afterwards. It was maybe one of the best ones they've done so far. Really, really great.
It's funny. I think people keep saying that every week. Again, myself included. It's like, this was the best episode so far. No, this week was the best of it. Like, they just keep upping it. It's great.
Yeah. Even
Molly,
like
what did you think? What did you think of the episode? I mean, I know what you thought of it, but no one in chat knows.
Garbage. I was going to make the same joke. No, this was a really exciting episode, and very happy that we finally got some Crosshair action. Yeah. And a lot happened, and we had some fun cameos.
I mean, I assume people have seen the episode if they're here. Hey, what's up, Scotty J. Rowe from Bombadcast? Thanks for joining us. I wanted to. Okay, Brandon, what was your reaction to seeing or hearing Cad Bane? What did you do when?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know who I was going to. I mean, because obviously they teased at the beginning that they were going to have somebody, right? And then you forget mm-hmm. for 20 minutes, like there's going to be somebody. And then, you see him, you hear the Western music, and I mean, the whole reintroduction of him is just the best. Like, it's just a chef's kiss of like everything they've been doing this season. And it was a big thrill. And plus Seth Green was back, and I was like, wow, they're really just hitting all the marks. It's great.
I would like to, since you bring up Seth Green and Toto, I would like to break down Molly and my reaction, because I heard Cad Bane, I heard that voice, and I just went, like, I'm a very boring person to watch something. Like, we don't really film reactions because I'm usually just sitting there like, So that got like a big excited gasp out of me. And I looked over at Molly, and she was like excited. But then Toto came out of the cockpit,
and I was like, ah!
So Molly had that reaction for Toto, which
it's funny because the same exact thing happened in Mandalorian when Luke showed up. I was like, oh, okay, this is like super cool. He's like mowing down droids and stuff, and like we get like the face reveal, and it's like, okay, cool, Luke's here. But then we see R2-D2, and I was like, wow.
Molly loves the droid sidekicks.
It just like I wasn't expecting it. It always catches me by surprise when their little sidekicks are there, and I'm like,
We've got another Element 7 is in the chat as well. What's up, man? Another previous guest on the Clone Zone, but yeah, that was fantastic. That was one of just the most fun. This series is being kind of like a cameo fest of like, okay, what familiar character is going to show up again? But like, man, they're doing it so well.
Yeah. I feel like, sorry, some people have like said that they aren't a fan of just like getting cameo after cameo, but I feel like with a show like this in a time period that we're kind of already familiar with, I think it's okay. You know, we've got a lot of new content coming in the next year or 2 or 5 or 10. I don't mind the cameos, and I feel like Cad Bane was bound to show up again somewhere. He's another one of Filoni's favorites. So yeah, a
Filoni fave. That should be like a list.
It really is. Every week it's like, okay, who's going to be the at Star Wars poster reveal on Monday morning? You know, it's going to be Saw Gerrera or the Martez sisters or Fennec or, you know, Cad Bane and maybe Toto. I mean, maybe they make a
I'd love that. I mean, that's a great point, though, because they did the exact same thing for the Mandalorian season 2. It feels like that's almost their social strategy of there's going to be a new character, whether or not it's a familiar one or not, but then that character is going to get a cool poster the following Monday. So that's something fun to look forward to. The AB do boop in the chat asks if season 1 is over. It's not, but you do remind me we are now halfway through season 1. So how would you all describe the first season? How did you like, or the first half of the season, and where do we think it's headed?
I would describe it as tense. There's been a lot of tense moments, a lot of build up. I mean, they've basically just been on the run this whole time, taking random jobs. Everyone in the Bad Batch is still kind of learning what to do with their lives at this point. You know, they've said it a couple of times, like, we're soldiers. That's kind of all we know how to do. And then they've been taking care of Omega. She's now like officially part of the team. They're giving her little jobs to do, which I love. And I feel like we're getting close to finding out more about Omega, which I'm very excited for.
I agree. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous to find out.
Yeah.
But it'll be fine. Well, hopefully, you know, it'll be good. But I mean, like you said, I think this whole, you know, getting to know them again, because people that maybe didn't gravitate to the Bad Batch initially, I think this past 8 episodes, it's like, oh, I really care about these characters a lot more than I would have ever anticipated. And you were even saying, like, their kind of journey from being soldiers to being mercenaries to now trying to figure out what their purpose is going to be, right? I think is kind of this next evolution of what we'll see in the next 8 episodes, hopefully. But I think that's kind of where we're getting to.
Yeah. And you mentioned like being scared for Omega. I'm like not happy she was captured, obviously. I want her to be safe, but for the story, I'm like, oh, this is like one of the best things that could have happened, just because it feels like, okay, we're halfway out and we presented all these mysteries, and now I see this path to where they're going to start being wrapped up of like, yeah, Cad Bane is probably working for the Kaminoans, maybe not, but he'll take her back to the Kaminoans, and then we're going to see like how they hide her from the Empire, because they're trying to do all this like behind their back. And it also seems like Nala Se wants to keep Omega safe. So is she going to help her escape again or something and get caught doing that? Also, does Omega actually have a chip in her head? And like, what are the Kaminoans going to do with her? And this, like, there's so many questions, but now I see how we can answer them. And I'm just so excited for it. It's like they bring Cad Bane back, and you can't be cynical about it, because it serves the story so well. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of agree with this, that Nala Se seemed to have hired Fennec, and then that Lama Su's like, no, we need a bunch more bounty hunters on this job.
I was gonna bring that up, and your idea of maybe Nala Se being the one to hire Fennec, and maybe she was like, hey, can you get this girl but like don't hurt her, I want to keep her safe. But then he hires Cad Bane, and he's like, just get her here, we need her back, she's valuable.
Well, I've seen people throw around the idea that maybe Cad Bane was hired by someone else. That would be like a twist. I think it's likely it's Kamino, but I mean, my weekly Dryden Voss is coming. I'm like, maybe Crimson Dawn picked her up.
The more bounty hunters they throw into the mix, and this is me just like, this is way left field, but with War of the Bounty Hunters going on, I wonder how closely they were working, if anything, because I know this was a long time ago, and I know that they've been writing like War of the Bounty Hunters #5 right now. But if they were knowing like Cad Bane was going to come back into the mix, or Fennec or whatever it is, and as you mentioned, maybe Crimson Dawn eventually, like, will there be any tie, any of that good old corporate synergy at some point, which would be super cool to see in the next couple of weeks. That's kind of been my hope going into it.
I'm like on the fence where, maybe some bounty hunters will go after Cad Bane, and maybe he won't just easily take her to Kamino. But then I'm like, is that too samey as to the War of the Bounty Hunters? But then, it's poetry, it rhymes, and these things happen again and again.
Well, this came up in chat. It did make me kind of think of when Grogu got captured, and we'll get a very similar rescue, maybe.
Oh, for sure. Like they're not gonna just leave her. We're like, well, that's done, I guess.
What if Hunter was like, well, okay, well now we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Oh God, that'd be terrible.
It's all good. Yeah, we'll just keep moving. It's great. She's fine, probably.
Yeah, for sure we're gonna see a rescue. And I wonder if it's like maybe they go straight back to Rex and they start gathering allies. Because maybe they can't do this on their own.
I did love that moment where I think, was it Echo who says, like, why didn't we just go with Rex? And he was like, he's on a different path. So I loved that line, just like, Rex is off, doing his thing, probably going out to find more clones to try to take their chips out. And the Bad Batch is still, figuring out what their place is in the galaxy, how they can survive and move on from all this.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about Crosshair a whole lot, but what did you think of him this episode?
Savage.
I mean, there's all these thinking like, oh, maybe he'll rejoin, but I think we see him every week kind of become more and more a servant of the Empire. And like, there's not like, even today when Omega was trying to reason with him and be like, remember the inhibitor chip, we're seeing that's never going to really play into effect. And I have a theory. I have a theory, and I saw someone talking about this a few weeks ago about when we started seeing these kind of commando stormtrooper units kind of being introduced. And then today at the end, when he's all banged up and he has a little mask on, is this the steps it takes to get us to the Rogue One Death Troopers? Like, is he going to be part of that first? It could be, everything working together, tying together.
I think a lot of people have that theory, and I feel like it's not special to me anymore because I've had the same theory for a long time.
But you did say exactly that. We were walking
I did.
Helo after watching the episode, and Molly was like, maybe these injuries lead to this and this, and like, yeah, the Death Troopers are supposed to be cybernetically enhanced, so maybe the first one was like out of necessity.
Yeah,
but I think that makes great. I think that's I think that makes perfect sense because it draws so many parallels to, Sith Lords and Darth Vader, and that if you dip into the dark side, like, it corrupts you, it hurts you, and he might not be a Force user, but there's still consequences to being evil.
Yeah, he's gonna be pretty scarred physically and maybe emotionally too after this, and he might need some kind of breathing apparatus. So I think it would be really cool if he were the first Death Trooper, and the helmet was kind of a necessity for him, and then they model all the rest kind of after him. But I do like that he was kind of serving us some Dengar vibes with all the bandages. I saw a couple people bringing that up, just like, oh.
I should throw out my very stupid thought that I had of just sometimes your brain does dumb things, but I was like, wait, is Crosshair Dengar? And I was like, no. Why did it was like Luke? It was just a flash and it was gone in an instant, and I was left with shame.
I mean,
Dengar's been around for a long time.
That's what you think of when you see someone with bandages on their head.
Right. Yeah. Great.
Well, do we think that there is still... I'm still holding out hope that he can come back, that he can have some redemption. I hope so, because I know that it's, even though every time we check in on him, he's doing worse and worse stuff, saying, shoot the kid first. No, Crosshair. But I know it's the chip. And especially with someone like Wrecker, who had the experience he had, he knows it's not easily controlled. So I'm hopeful that they somehow win him over.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of starting to lose hope for him getting saved. I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where they save him and then he sacrifices himself in some big heroic way. Because
classic Star Wars.
Classic Star Wars, exactly. Because he's going to have to live with everything that he's done.
Yeah.
And it's okay, well, it'd be interesting for Star Wars writers to show what that looks like, but the easy way is to have him heroically pass away.
Yeah, it is that is a very, the Star Wars writers love doing that. And, I think redemption is likely, but then the continuation of that redemption, maybe not so much. So
yeah, it's just an all around, the clone stuff is so tragic from start to finish, of just they can't control it. It's so sad. And knowing that Crosshair is in there somewhere and probably unable to control any of his thoughts or actions is upsetting.
Yeah. I was talking in the last stream about whether or not we would see someone get through to Crosshair, see him flinch at all. And I was asking Alex earlier if the fact that instead of shooting Hunter, he was like, okay, I'll shoot the kid. Was that a flinch? And you were like, no, that's worse.
It's way worse.
Yeah.
I'm with you, though. I was hoping to see some level of hesitation, but, I just think that his chip is too far dialed up right now.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't. We were talking about our favorite parts of this whole series so far, and Crosshair is a part of that. But this whole clone troopers turning into stormtroopers was even more evident in this episode, where they would pass them by in a hallway, just because they were hiding correctly, and it was very reminiscent of original trilogy stormtroopers. And we're seeing that more and more, and Crosshair kind of being the best of them and still experiencing, and then becoming the worst of them almost. It was a very interesting juxtaposition with everything going on.
I loved that little moment, the way they treated the clones, I would say, like droids, where they're we know what they're going to do. We know what they're programmed to do. They're going to go from this side of the ship to that side. So if we hide right here, they're not going to see us. And at first I was that's awfully convenient, but I think that's the point, is that the Empire is all about their procedures and their protocols. Makes them predictable. But then that immediately gets turned on their head, where Crosshair's you're so predictable.
It was really cool to see Crosshair just knowing what their plans were going to be, because he seemed to be just on their level, one step ahead, even because he knows the Bad Batch pretty well. So he knew what to tell the other clones in order to wrangle them up and eventually catch up with them.
Speaking of just like favorite moments, this is something I don't think I've seen anyone else talk about, but it was just, I really liked Wrecker when he slid down into the engine and he was like riding that box and he just made like a little kind of laughing noise. That sparked joy.
Every time he like is a little bit scared or is like fighting and he like yells, he does like add some laughter into it, because he did when he jumped on that the scrappers little floating pod thing, he like jumped on it and just started giggling like wee, which I loved seeing that.
Well, I think that's everything I had to say about this episode. Brandon, do you have anything else?
Boba Fett?
I'm sure someone's going to bring that up.
The standoff?
I'm sure that's going to be.
We could, if we want to get ahead of it, we can talk about it, because I was watching the animatic earlier and I was like, well, that's the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So Dragonus Prime did.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's just go ahead and Dragonus Prime. Thank you so much for the super chat, and we'll make this our first question. It's your boy. Do you think we could see Boba Fett show up to save Omega from Cad Bane in order to recreate that moment where Boba kills Cad? Man, you just like spoiled my video for tomorrow. Where, I absolutely think this is possible. I don't know that it will happen, but yeah, the original plan for this arc, that the Boba Fett versus Cad Bane arc, was that Cad Bane was going to like threaten the lives of some innocents to draw Boba into a duel with him. So they could very easily swap out those just innocent bystanders with Omega, and Boba Fett could see like, that's basically my sister.
Yeah.
And they have a duel.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that he is necessarily dead. That's never been confirmed. They just have a duel. Hunter got shot in the chest today and he's fine.
True. That's true.
It would kind of suck if they like brought him back and then immediately had Boba Fett kill him.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people clamoring for Cad Bane in live action now in the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Keep him around.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about who hired Fennec and who hired Cad Bane, and it was also, theorized early that maybe Fennec was hired by somebody. Obviously, like Jango used to hire Sam Wessel, right? Like it runs in the family, right? Boba could have hired Fennec, and he's more on the side of protect Omega. He knows who Omega is, right, in a sense. And so then we could really be led to the animatic, almost handheld to it, where he's prepared to kind of risk his life for a blood relative if he sees it that way.
Yeah, I remember a couple episodes ago, maybe it was the one when Fennec first showed up, I was like, I kind of hope Fennec and Boba already have some kind of relationship, whether they're just like working together, or if maybe he was the one to find her and like hire her and like teach her how to be a bounty hunter or assassin, whatever she is. But yeah, Boba Fett has to show up at some point in this show, right?
I think it's very likely.
Yeah.
I can't
just
wait.
with everything else going on with Boba Fett in live action and in the comics, and there's just so much Boba Fett right now. It's like
it's the synergy that we talked about.
I do think he will show up, whether or not it's in this arc or this little series, and whether or not they redo that arc, I don't know. Because Molly, you pointed out, like the showdown between Hunter and Cad was basically the same as we saw in the unfinished like story reel. It was almost shot for shot the same. Yeah. Except that Cad Bane doesn't get shot.
I was thinking like there's a 50-50 chance that this is a nod to that unfinished footage that we saw between Cad Bane and Boba Fett, and they just kind of like recreated it for this show, or it's like a wink wink, like we're gonna bring this back later with Boba Fett and actually like follow through with that storyline.
Well, doing it
Yeah.
first with Hunter means that if it comes back, it's like, is Boba Fett going to be fast enough?
Yeah.
Well, it's even Cad Bane says something, which is like it's all foreshadowing, which I think it's what we're all getting to. He says like, once you figure out one clone, you figure out all of them, and so then when
Ooh,
you
yeah,
bring in
that's
someone
good.
like Boba Fett, and it's like, okay, well, this clone might be a little bit different. You know, that could be maybe his downfall, or maybe whatever leads to that
Yeah,
final result.
yeah. I could also see that again, like this is just an illusion, a reference to that unfinished arc. They might not ever show us that. I hope they do, but it's possible that all of that happened off screen, and yeah, Cad Bane survived, and now he's just back to doing his thing.
It would also be cool if they recreated it in live action during Book of Boba Fett. Like if they just never, Boba Fett never showed up, right? And then they're like, okay, let's fast forward 30 years. Let's do it the same thing, but in live action with Cad Bane and Boba. And obviously we wouldn't get the dented helmet anymore, which was kind of the cool, really cool part of it. But it would be cool too.
Although, does he have the dent in the new helmet?
Yeah, did he punch it out of the?
When he repainted it, maybe he fixed the dent, and then they'll do it. They'll do it as old men. Get the dent again.
Get the same dent.
Just fix that. But it's good. Josh Thompson, thank you for the early message, the early super chat, sending in an early message. I just wanted to point out all the sound effects from Republic Commando that were scattered throughout this episode that I love so much.
The dent is still there.
Okay.
You just kind of painted over it.
It gets even more dented.
I had to Google it and find out, but yeah, it's still there.
I've seen a lot of people talking about Republic Commando, and I know David W. Collins, who works on the Lucasfilm sound team, has talked about lifting sound effects from the games and stuff before, but definitely some Republic Commando vibes at the end there.
It's funny. I've never played that game, but I wrote in my notes that scene at the end where you see Hunter's like point of view through his helmet and everything. I was like, this feels like a video game. And then I started seeing everyone talk about Republic Commando, and I was like, oh, cool.
I didn't see the top question as well. But go ahead.
Oh, the one from Guiguio.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your super chat. What do you think the Cad Bane return means for the unproduced Clone Wars episodes? Are they not canon anymore, or is this a case-by-case basis?
So we kind of touched on this, but I don't know how they're going to treat those. So far, they've acted as if anything that George Lucas touched, whether it was produced or not, happened. So like there were a lot of Clone Wars stories that didn't get produced, but they've referenced them often in other stories and haven't changed any details about them. So if they do this, it will be a first. I think it's fine if they do, but I could also see them saying like, oh, that was something George did and let's not touch it. Let's just say it happened, but we won't alter it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've mentioned this before in like Q&As and stuff about all those like unfinished arcs. I think it would be cool if they eventually did finish all of them and release it as like its own little mini series. But it does kind of feel like they're doing it in a case by case basis. Like, okay, can we fit this idea into this new show that we're working on? Because that's kind of like the standoff between Cad Bane and Hunter. That's what it felt like to me. Like, oh, they're taking what they did with that unfinished arc and they're putting it in this Bad Batch show.
Mm-hmm. I've seen people are talking about the Yuzon Vong arc as well, Stuart. I've actually seen people on Twitter, like Lucasfilm people, say that someone asked, like, I assumed that the Yuzon Vong arc wouldn't be canon, though, right? And they say, I don't know why you would assume that. Like, they were going to change a lot about the Yuzon Vong, but I think that they assumed that arc happened. It might not affect anything in future Star Wars storytelling, but I would say that the Yuzon Vong are out there somewhere.
Oh, that'd be so cool. That would be a Monday morning, like me standing up and like running laps in my apartment. if that shows up in like Bad Batch episode 11 or something.
That'd be
That
nuts.
would be crazy. I would be very curious if they ever dove into that. Like, I know people are mixed on the Vong. I always liked them. I thought they were badass as a kid.
Yeah.
I just
plus
had
if they're in a reduced capacity, then it's like, I think it's fine. I think it's more fun than anything.
I just had a super random thought and was thinking about Ahsoka and Thrawn, and we had been talking about recently, like how much of a villain Thrawn's going to be, but like, what if the Yuzan Vong are like the real villains in the Ahsoka show, and they have to like team up?
That's basically what Legends did. I think that's a little much for people like my parents. Who are just kind of, you need to ease them in.
Well, it could be like an attack on the Chiss ascendancy, so it's like very far away from everything that we already know. I don't know.
I just want to explain to my dad who Nominor is or something. I think that would really make my year. Let's just make it happen at this point.
And yeah, I see people mentioning like the Grisk. The Grisk have largely replaced the Vong, I think, in the Thrawn books.
Mm-hmm.
Batman is my dad. Thanks for your super chat. Just Crosshair, kill the girl first. And then Batman is my dad says, okay, you need to chill, bro. Molly and I both had a pretty strong reaction to that. Like, shoot the kid, aim for the kid. And I was like, excuse me now?
Like, that's a prime example of Crosshair just going right for the jugular. Because Hunter would jump in front of a bullet for Omega at this point. So he's like, all right, well, we'll skip that step. Go straight to the girl.
It is interesting. Crosshair's chip seems to function differently than like Wrecker's did when his went off. Wrecker was kind of robotic, just like a Terminator moving towards a target. And Crosshair is like a little more mustache twirly in his evilness.
He's very calculated, and I think that has to do with like whatever changes that they made to the chip by cranking it up to 11.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Dr. Holocron, thanks for your super chat. I love how Bane's scene was basically a reversal of the Luke scene in Mando. Instead of a hero raising a child, it's a villain kidnapping a child. I mean,
lots of Mando parallels here.
I still think Luke kidnapped Grogu. It was a very slow kidnapping. Everybody was like, I guess
it's okay. Yeah.
What was that Netflix show you watched? Kidnapped in Plain Sight or something? Like, that's basically what Luke did. No, give me that baby. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. He'll be back, Molly. He'll be fine. I did love the execution of that scene of when their Crosshair's like, patch me into the shuttle, and they're like, CT5 Veba, whatever his number was, and like you see all the bodies. I was like, too late, Crosshair. The Bad Batch got away. And then Omega and Hunter ran up, and I was like, oh yeah, the bounty hunter. Oh no.
Yeah.
So Ice Fisher tenacity. Toothpick fight. How would it look? Who wins? That was in my review. With all of the questions I had to ask, I asked if Cad Bane and Crosshair will get in a toothpick fight. Who chews it best? I don't know.
Yeah, who looks cooler with the toothpick?
See, I think it's a toothpick fight. I thought it was both of them holding it in their mouths and then like sparring, just be very close to each other's faces. That could also be very cinematic, very beautiful. Could be fun.
Think of the fanfics would come out of that. I mean, Cad Bane, I think, wears it best. He was the OG.
Yeah, I do too.
I wonder if he's going to overshadow Crosshair now. Just like take over as the main villain. I really hope they address it, honestly. I hope they have a scene together and they're like, I'm the toothpick guy. Of all the things to exist in Star Wars, toothpicks are still around.
Maybe if they meet up and have like a showdown, one of them like spits out their toothpick and the other one's like, oh, I guess I'll do that too. Our toothpick's out now. Fine.
And that's
Where
like,
does
yeah.
Crosshair? Sorry, where does Crosshair put his toothpick? Is what I'm asking. Does he? You know what I mean? Like he wears the helmet, right? So
Yeah.
where is it going? Does he have a pouch? You know,
That's-
I think we talked about this. He has one of those like canisters somewhere on his armor where you like push down and a new toothpick rolls out.
He has to. He's throwing them away constantly.
right.
So like he's got another one ready at all
He's so
times.
so dramatic. Bakey, thanks so much for your super chat and question. Is Cad Bane going to deliver Omega to Kamino without incident? I kind of think so.
I do too.
I would
I'm
like
ready.
to see. I would like to see Cad Bane talking to Lama Su, just like a conversation between the two of them, and then I think this is a good opportunity to figure out more about Omega. Like she said way back at the beginning of the season, she doesn't like being hooked up to their machines either. She's probably going to be hooked up to machines again, which is sad, but
Yeah. Brandon, what do you think?
I think it'll be just like Mando season 2, and then also I don't think we're talking a lot about War of the Bounty Hunters, and that's kind of what we're dealing with in War of the Bounty Hunters, right? Like not making it to Tatooine. So I think they'll just kind of move the story along. We'll be at Kamino in the next episode or whenever the rescue will be.
I think I agree that I would rather them just get there and start answering questions. I think it's time to start saying, yeah, what are Omega's enhancements? Let's figure that out. But yeah,
oh man, this popped up and I immediately thought one of them's gonna get shot, and instead of the hat floating down, it's gonna be the toothpick.
Dang. That's good.
I love that. Yeah.
This season's been so beautiful with the lighting. It'll be so cinematic. It's going to be wonderful.
I did what I saw someone say that or ask if his hat was smaller. I think it is, but I was researching the unfinished arc earlier today, and in 2015 they showed off like what Cad Bane was going to look like in that arc, and it's exactly how he looks now. So they just repurposed that model, which again, I'm like, okay, just keep going. Let's do that Boba Fett stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd prefer they just get to Kamino. Oh, and I wish I remember who said this, but I saw someone say that Omega and Toto are going to become best friends. So I wouldn't mind an episode of Journey, like
A bottle
just to
episode.
see them hang out.
Aw, I would love that.
Lindsay Brown, thanks for your question. Where is Omega going to be brought? Kind of weird. If she is brought back to Kamino, no way the Empire wouldn't notice. See, I'm really excited. I want them to go back to Kamino for exactly that reason, because I want to see them like get into hijinks trying to hide this child.
Lama
Also,
Su hijinks.
you know-
That's what we're all wanting.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Yeah. And you know she's picked up a thing or two hanging out with the Bad Batch and, going on these missions and stuff. So it'd be cool to see her on her own just get out of a tricky situation.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Kamino has to be the likely destination, unless there's a twist and it wasn't the Kaminoans that hired Cad.
Yeah.
But right now, I think that's the case.
Madison Badger, thanks for your super chat. Save Omega. Cad Bane. My only wish is that I wish the Batch had an astromech. I know that Echo and Tech fill the void, but I wish. I kind of feel the same way. Every time we've seen droids, astromech droids pop up, I'm like, why don't they take one of those? I feel like that would be helpful, but you're right. Like, then Echo wouldn't be as special with his little tool hand.
I would love that if they had an astromech and then him or the droid and Tech could like get into fights, or they could try to be figuring out who is more important to the team. It could be a lot of fun. Same color scheme. I want it now. That's all I want. Astromech for the Bad Batch.
That kind of reminds me, though. I liked what little Echo got to do today, but I'm still waiting for like Echo and Tech to really get some episodes to shine. I thought Tech was about to get one today when Omega was asking what was the war like, and I was like, yeah, go into that, divulge more, and I just want them to have like some character moments.
I liked that line. He was like, I'm pretty sure I explained it well just then. Were you not listening? Like, I love Tech.
Murtala Muhammad, thank you for your super chat. Personally, Omega getting kidnapped hit harder than when it happened to Grogu. Still was happy to see Cad Bane, though.
All right.
it hit about the same for me, because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, they'll be fine. Like, I'm sad it happened, but they'll be fine, right? They'll be fine.
She's not a baby.
He's 50, Molly.
He's a 50-year-old baby.
I was glad because Cad Bane obviously shoots with just the regular blaster fire and then switches to the stun. And you don't really realize he's switching to the stun if you're just watching again at 8 a.m. in the morning. So it was nice to see the blue circles instead of the red. I was like, okay, good. Oh my God. Thank goodness.
I did appreciate, the second time we watched, I noted that, he clicked on the not the safety, my brain is not functioning anymore. The stun.
The stun.
Yeah. I liked that we got to see that happen.
A lot of people got stunned in this episode. All those scrapper guys. They're going to wake up and be like, what the?
Oh, yeah. Are they okay? Because they wrecked that ship and it fell a little bit. Hopefully they didn't roll off the side. Well,
that last guy that got stunned, it looked like after he got stunned, he just like rolled off of something. I hope the Dianoga didn't. Did. Well, I guess the Dianoga
they had all three of them. They put all three of them on the Venator, so I think they're all fine. Probably.
There's so many instances in this show of like really violent things happening to people with masks on, and you're just like, are they dead? What happened?
Wrecker throwing that one trooper out of the window. I felt bad because I laughed because he let out a funny scream, but I was like, that dude's dead.
He hit a guy with a proton torpedo. I mean, it didn't go off, but
I was shocked that person came back. I was like, that dude's dead. And then like they came back and in the subtitles it said that trooper had a line again. I was like, no way.
The one through the window, because has it been identified? I know they went away from the Wilhelm scream and are doing like a new Lucasfilm scream. I don't know if it's been discovered, but I was like, that could have been it. Like that could be the new scream. So
yeah, it did sound sort of familiar now that I think about it.
I'd have to go listen to it again.
Eric Stammer, thanks for your super chat. I applaud the restraint in not showing a young Cal on Braca. Yeah, it's something that we thought maybe since we're here, but it would have just derailed the story and maybe just confused a lot of people. So
I thought for a second that when they were like accessing intelligence on the bridge, I was like, maybe that was Cal's Venator because it exploded above Braca. So maybe it crashed. And then they would see like some holographic footage of like a Padawan running away from clones. I was like, maybe this will happen. It didn't. We didn't need it, but it's fine.
Do you think Cameron Monaghan would do a little kid voice, or would he do his regular voice if he ever?
I mean, He did a little kid voice in the game, so I think he could handle it better
He can
than
do it.
Freddie Prinze Jr.'s like 30-year-old teenager.
I love it. It's like that might be my favorite moment in the series. Just like deep voice, 15-year-old Kanan, like the best.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, here we go.
Master, no.
I would have been excited to see young Cal, but I also admit that probably would have been a little much.
Mm.
Dusan Sosterik, I'm sorry for how I just said your name. When do you expect season 2 of Bad Batch? I'd guess about a year.
Yeah, I think a year in between seasons is probably likely.
It'll be
This
interesting
time next year.
with everything else coming out. I'm sure that
that's
they will
true.
probably try to, schedule it around all the live action stuff. That'll get the priority, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting like all the content we're getting next year. It's going to be kind of crowded.
I don't. They have not confirmed season 2 yet. But
That's true too.
Yeah.
Did they, when they were announcing this series, did they call it like Marvel has been very deliberate with how they're calling their series, like a limited series or an event or whatever it is. Do you remember how it was denoted for when they announced Bad Batch, or is it maybe going to be a 1-season show out of its actual story?
I guess we'll see. I don't think they called it a limited series. I think it'll have multiple seasons, but they have not said either way. And I'm kind of surprised if it's going to have a season 2, I'm surprised they haven't announced it. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how the season ends, but I would expect another season.
I'm kind of the opposite, I guess. I could see this more so being, because it's 16 episodes and not like a shorter series, this could be like a one-off thing. Although, I mean, I hope we get to see Omega again, like grown up at some point.
Yeah. Well,
that's kind of where I'm at too, where like obviously we've never seen the Bad Batch past this time period. And it is a very animation thing that I love, where you're like, oh, this character has just been slipping through the cracks and just places you haven't seen. But it also might, like, obviously I don't want them to die or anything to happen to them. But like, if it was just kind of closed off right here for obvious reasons, if none of the crew makes it or whatever it is, and just Omega survives, then that might be how the story continues. I
mean, if we're talking about corporate synergy, this season's going to end. We're going to go to Book of Boba Fett. Let's see a full-grown Omega show up in Book of Boba Fett.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, she should be about
in a wig. Yeah.
Yep, I'm on board. It's like they don't even try. All this technology and just like, boom, blonde wig, Omega, go.
Ooh, she could show up with like some armor that has some resemblance to Wrecker's armor. She like, I don't know, that Wrecker becomes like part of her identity when she grows up. Aw, that's cute.
I mean, the next question is very relevant from Dr. Holocron. Thank you. Do you think they'll get Michelle Ang to play Omega as an adult in live action? If that happens, I think it's possible, because I do think they have been trying to do that as much as they can now that they know that like live action is on the table for anything. I think they're probably at least casting with that in mind. But, who knows?
I Googled Michelle Ang and like a bunch of Omega stuff popped up.
It's definitely something where I need that voice. I would be so sad if they recast and she couldn't say teak right.
Teak. Yeah, I think that would be really cool for her to play her in live action. Lightning Blade 3, thanks for your super chat. Was Crosshair rubbing his chip when he got up? How do you rub your chip?
Rub your head where your chip is, I guess.
Yeah, I think he just was like, that's the universally accepted way of being like, oh, wow, I got hurt.
Yeah. Like, if he did, I'm pulling it up actually. If he did, I did not notice it. They didn't like call attention to it. But I'm looking.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like when Wrecker was having headaches, he was like kind of touching the same spot on his head. It's possible. I did think that like after everything that Crosshair went through physically in this episode, I was like, oh, maybe something will get knocked loose with his chip, but no, it seems pretty secure.
Yeah. I don't see anything that even looks like he's rubbing his head. So yeah, I think his chip is unfortunately still working fine.
Yeah.
Rick Villanueva, what's up? And thanks for the super chat. I'm here. Gah in all caps and hi Brandon from Rick.
There we go. Hi, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. And Brett Baumler, thank you for your super chat. In my opinion, the duel was a way to set up a bookend for Cad Bane. He starts the show with a duel against a clone, and his story ends with another duel against a clone, Boba Fett. Could be a series-long arc. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the trick, I think, is to find a way to involve the Bad Batch. Because the Clone Wars jumped all around. It would follow different characters. The Bad Batch have been central to every episode. So just as long as they're involved, I think it can work.
Yeah. It'll also have to be, because I'm glad they said like series long arcs. So like the rest of the episodes, Cad would have to be involved. I feel like if it happened next episode or in 2 episodes where people that maybe are just watching the Bad Batch, right? You have to think of it as a singular show as well as connected. Would they care? Would they be like, oh, like, cool, this character that we've met for 3 episodes? Just so like, if it happens, I think they're correct. It'll take kind of a series to build up to it, and then it might be the season finale.
Yeah, I think you're right. It can't happen too fast.
Yeah,
that does make sense.
Got another super chat from Batman as my dad. Thank you. Do you think Bad Batch will lead an assault on Kamino to rescue Omega?
I assume so.
I mean, lead an assault sounds like a much larger scale thing. I think it's going to be kind of like a sneaky operation because they don't have a lot of people on their side right now. But
I mean, we could see kind of a run back through to pick up Rex. Maybe they find Wolf and Gregor and some other clones. We could see them put a team together and then go in. But it could just be the 4 of them. I mean, they're a squad unto themselves, so they might just find a way to sneak in, get her, and sneak out. Either way, I'm excited.
I hope they recruit Clink. And
Yes.
he's like their inside man.
He's the first person they go get.
Yeah.
They have they're getting all their crew. It's like the Mando season finale, and there's like, we have one more stop to make. Our most important stop.
And it's just like they open that door and Clink looks over and like nods. Shoves that Gran out of the way.
He does a salute and his arm is like basically a slinky and it just goes.
I love Clink. We can only hope. Yeah. You know what? If Bad Batch is only 1 season, then maybe they'll do like the Clink story afterwards, and we can get a whole season all about Clink and whatever he's up to. Jane Dalton, thanks for your question. Do y'all think we'll ever see a flashback of Omega's life to explain her purpose? Maybe why or who created her? I don't know that we need a flashback. I think just an explanation from Nala Se would do.
Yeah, I don't see too many flashbacks happening involving Omega, but maybe. I think we're going to learn that in the next episode. I think we're going to learn a lot about her, assuming they make it back to Kamino.
I hope there's not a bottle episode with Seth Green and Omega hanging out for 20 minutes.
I'm fine with
just
that
like
too.
on Cad Bane's ship.
Yeah, that's all it is. Nothing crazy. Y'all are going to come on and just be like, okay, we have 20 minutes to talk about. It's just a conversation they're having about food or something.
It'll be just like Grogu and the droid on the Razor Crest, where Omega's like sneaking around, like
yeah. I mean, if they really get to talking, like Omega, I feel is pretty insightful. She could probably turn Toto on Cad Bane, be like, oh, like if they swap stories and Toto's like, yeah, I mean, he blew me up once. And, and it's like, maybe you shouldn't work with this guy anymore. I'm sure Cad Bane wipes this memory, but still.
Do we think that that Seth Green coming back to do 3 lines in this show means that Detours is coming to Disney Plus? I was like, wait a second. Like he had to have come in, hung out, talked about whatever. Maybe they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna put Detours on as a nice surprise, like this morning's droid surprise.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. Like I'm not. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. I would, and I wouldn't be. I don't know. Like I would be excited to watch it, but
I'd be excited and nervous to watch it.
Yes, sure. Yeah, that's the clip that they released, which I think that it leaked. Like okay,
right, yeah.
I do think they were maybe gauging some interest, and I was like, this is fine. Like it's Robot Chicken, almost. Like Robot Chicken Light,
yeah,
which makes sense.
Daryl Unification, thanks for the super chat. What's the story on Toto 360 and who could save Omega? Not Batman. He is busy with Catwoman.
Well, I mean, the Bad Batch is going to save him. I think that was all just set up for a Batman joke.
Yeah. The story of Toto is that we're all glad that he's still in this.
I mean, if you honestly don't know about Toto, like he's always been kind of Cad Bane's sidekick, and Cad Bane never really treats him well. He did literally blow him up once in the Jedi Temple. So, yeah.
And he's voiced by Seth Green.
Yep. You no longer get to tease me about this. Thanks for your super chat. Weird to think that Cal and Kanan are the same age. Yeah, that's true. I think Cal's a little younger, but they're close.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cal was probably like 12 or 13. I don't remember. I should probably know that math, but.
Rogue Squadron trainee, thanks for your super chat. Was this the first time we have seen Omega kill? She tagged that clone trooper and with her energy bow and didn't seem at all fazed by it.
I'm trying to remember, but I think so, because I remember having that thought of like, oh, she just killed a dude.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back.
Well, this makes me think of something that I said when Finnick just first showed up, and like they were kind of like being buddy for a second, and then all of a sudden Finnick just starts killing people left and right. Like I kind of saw that as Omega finally getting like a female role model, sort of the very beginnings of one, and then seeing her just like mowed people down, like cops and stuff. So maybe she was channeling a little bit of Finnick there.
I mean, it's kind of like Grogu and being around Din, who is just like every time Din does something violent, it then shows Grogu being like, I saw that. And so Omega's been around these guys who are, doing what they need to survive. They're not like running around killing indiscriminately, but I don't think it's like that far outside of her experience to that it would phase her, I guess, especially when it's a life or death situation. And they all said, aim for the kid.
Yeah. And you even think about how she grew up, right? I mean, she's grown up on Kamino, surrounded by war her entire life. So it might, obviously, like, killing someone is a huge deal, even in a Star Wars fantasy realm. But maybe she's a little desensitized, even beyond what like Grogu might be used to.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, everyone that she's ever been around they were born to fight. So to her, it's natural. She hasn't done it before, as far as we know. That's my like crazy. What if she's just like a sleeper agent waiting to be activated, and she's going to go ham one day?
We're going to have just whatever her trigger words are, just a string of random words, like Winter Soldier.
Right. So, you know, maybe she's been on missions before. Maybe this is all foreshadowing. Madison Badger, thanks for your super chat. Would Omega recognize Boba as an unaltered clone? Probably.
I wonder if she knows who that is. She seems to know a lot about the clones specifically. So, like, I wonder if anyone told her, like, yeah, all these clones are modeled after Jango Fett, and Jango, all he wanted was an unaltered clone for himself, and his name was Boba, and he was a delight.
He was just a nice kid. Nothing wrong with him at all. I wonder, because, you know, we've seen what happened to the grown clone troopers becoming the stormtroopers, but of course you have all the other stages of clone trooper development also at some point being either taken over by the Empire as just property, and then as they kind of grow into their next phases. And so, like, would she recognize him as like, oh, this is a, you know, what would that be, 8-year-old clone? You know, like, who are you? You know, like, would she be able to kind of tell that that was part of the life cycle? It would really just kind of be by sight almost.
Yeah, I just see her the way she knew Rex right away. I was like, I think she'd at least be able to recognize an unaltered clone, whether or not she knows who Boba is.
Yeah, because she's seen them kind of go through all their ages.
Yep.
Yeah. Or maybe as soon as Boba Fett shows up, he goes, "Hey, I'm Boba Fett."
I'm an unaltered clone.
you might not recognize, or you might actually super recognize me. Sleep of Giants, thanks for the super chat. Just says Cad Batch. That should have been the title of this episode.
That'll be next week's episode, the bottle episode with Cad Bane and Toto. And
yep,
it's a new logo and everything. That'd be great.
But do we think that he will survive the series? Like, if he does die in that duel with Boba Fett, and if that happens, like, I'm trying to think if this is kind of like a swan song for Cad Bane. I hope that he continues on. But
yeah, I hope he survives.
I'd love to see him in live action somewhere.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool.
Joel Ramirez, thanks for a very generous super chat. Hey guys, huge fan. What do you think about a limited series following Omega, Disney Plus, live action, showrunner Mr. Filoni? Much love from Chicago. I get, like, depends on what it's about.
Yeah. I don't know that Omega's going to get her own series. I would love for her to pop up in something down the road. That's just how Disney usually works with these things. But I don't know. How involved is Filoni in the Bad Batch?
He is the series creator. I don't think he's written or directed any episodes yet, though.
No.
So it's probably more of a concept.
I mean, he gets most of the credit because he created most of these characters. but I don't think he's that involved in the story. Or maybe he is. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what the extent of his was. He just like, oh, we should do a show about the Bad Batch after Revenge of the Sith, or was he like, here, the Bad Batch needs to hit these 6 major beats so they can tie into Book of Boba Fett or Mando season 3 or whatever it's going to be? Because I mean, like, we're asking what Omega, the possibilities of an Omega series, and it might be all of the Disney Plus things have all been connected through cloning at this point, right? We've seen it pop up over and over again, and it's like, okay, like, is this the Force sensitive clone initiative? Are they tying it all the way to the sequel trilogy using Omega as that kind of key?
Okay. Rachel says that he co-wrote the first episode, and he's also on IMDb listed as the showrunner. So he is overseeing all of it.
So he's the one to ultimately say yes or no to a lot of this stuff, but I still think he's not super involved with this show, with everything else he's got going on.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how anyone runs one show, much less works on this, and I'm sure the Ahsoka show and the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. Like, I don't know how anyone does one of those things. So maybe he's just never sleeps.
He's a busy guy. I do like the idea of whoever wrote this episode and directed it. They came to him with like, okay, hear me out, Cad Bane. And Filoni's like, go on. He's like really into the idea. And then he takes credit for it later.
Apparently Brad Rao is listed as the showrunner too, so I don't know. I'm just reading IMDb.
Probably going to wrap up here soon. Our last super chat that we've got here is from Han Loves Leia and says, could Crosshair's burns have weakened his chip?
Maybe. I don't see any signs of that yet, but maybe and hopefully. I'm still on the redemption train.
I don't know that the burns weakened his chip. I like I said earlier, I thought maybe with how just kind of generally beat up he got in this episode, something might have gotten loose with his chip, but it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. And plus he's so bandaged up and he's such under their care right now that they are going to scan him through, and if they saw anything of a discrepancy, they would just fix it right then.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, we've seen him like hooked up to that machine multiple times. So they're probably checking him out every time they come in. They're like, what else can we do? Do you need a reset there, buddy? Han Loves Leia sent in another one and said, how do we feel about Cad Bane's new look? I like it. And again, I was very excited to see that it's from their original plans for him in the Clone Wars, that they just reused it. I love that.
Yeah, I didn't really recognize much of a difference in his look, but that's probably because I hadn't seen him in a while. But
do you remember the last time? It's been 9 years since Cad Bane was on screen.
Whoa,
that's crazy.
All right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Corey Burton got the call. He's like, what character is this? I haven't done this in a while.
Oh, does Corey Burton do his voice? Oh yeah, he does. Cool.
I did think that that the hat looked a little small. I like his really wide brim hat, but that's just a nitpick.
Maybe
it's been a good day for those kinds of hats, though, because this came in the mail for.
Oh, nice!
I
did get mine too. Yeah.
Yay!
maybe as Cad Bane gets older, he realizes that the ultra wide brim hat is just not practical.
Kept losing it. Me. So there's something else they were going to introduce in that original arc. Cad Bane was going to get a new ship called the Justifier, and they showed the design during this panel from 2015. And Dave Filoni laughed and said, like, it's a shame it's never going to happen now. And I'm like, I bet we're going to see that ship, that exact ship in the next episode.
For a full episode, because that's all we'll see. It'll just be one episode. New, like, we're going to really Cad Batch this ship. That's the new thing. That's the new character poster for the next Monday. It's just a new
Cad badge. Well, I'm gonna keep a lookout for some more questions here from chat because we're through all our super chats. But while I do that, Brandon, why don't you tell everyone where people can follow you online and listen to Talking Bay 94?
Yeah, you can listen to Talking Bay 94 anywhere you listen to podcasts, or www.talkingbay94, which was not taken apparently, which was nice. And yeah, I interview cast and crew of Star Wars every week. So you can follow me on Twitter where I just kind of mess around at Talking Bay 94 as well.
Do you have any interviews coming up you want to tease?
Yeah,
or that you've done recently?
I just talked to Adrian Wilkinson, who was in The Force Unleashed as Maris Brood, and then was the daughter in the Mortis arc, which was super cool. And I just yesterday talked to Katie Cartwheel, who was like the on-set Rio Durant for Solo and did all the gymnastics moves and stuff. So it was cool talking to her, and that'll be next week's episode. And yeah, fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, there are links to your Twitter and to the podcast in the description. So make sure to check Talking Bay 94 out. And I just saw a good question I liked. Okay, Jason S. Could the Bad Batch get captured? And could they get new chips in their heads? I saw someone ask this the other day. Do you think inhibitor chips can be put back in? Or is it like they're put in at birth and that's it?
Could they just be reactivated? Like put back in the machine and flip the toggle?
Well, if they were physically taken out, if they were physically taken out, I feel like they could be put back in. I don't see that being a comfortable process, but I don't know. That would be tragic, though.
I'm gonna guess that they can't be put. I don't know. Like the technology probably exists, but when we saw them in the Clone Wars season 6, they looked very biological. They didn't look like a computer chip. So I don't know. I kind of think that in theory it could happen because it's Star Wars and they can just do whatever they want. But I'd like to think that it won't happen.
Right.
And I like this one too, Callum Samuel. Do you think we'll see Hondo in the Bad Batch?
We've talked about this before, but I mean, he could show up at any time, I feel like, anywhere.
We never know. Yeah.
Waiting in the wings.
He's hiding in Cad Bane's ship right now.
Oh, there we go. I love this. He's
going to help Omega escape or something.
Maybe Hondo hired Cad Bane. Like, how does Hondo know who Omega is? I mean, that he's another Filoni fave. So yeah, I think he's probably going to pop up at some point, especially the way this series has been going.
Yep.
It would be crazy to see him live action. I know we've talked about it for Mando potentially, but Book of Boba Fett, that seems like almost a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
I'm shocked they haven't done anything with Batu or Hondo in any of The Mandalorian yet. Like, I just figured they would have gone there before it opened and just like, we have a set. Let's just shoot on this real quick before everyone runs all over it.
Before it's covered in gum and trash.
I think they should have done that. I think they will at some point. But
because I was expecting to see it in episode 9 during the montage at the end. I was, a little crowd going like, yeah, this is great.
Oh, right, that would have been great.
But
that would have been cool.
At least we got some popcorn in last week's episode. Some Mantel mix. All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us today. Thank you everyone for hanging out and asking your questions, leaving us super chats. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us, and everyone make sure you check out Talking Bay. But until next time, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.